So I wanted to talk a little bit more about the Edomites and Khazars. Before I get into that, I just wanted to mention as kind of a follow-up to my last video, I found out what kind of snake it was, I think. And someone else confirmed they think this is what it was too. They think it's a pit viper, which in the context, you got to watch the last video, I'm not going to repeat it all, but it's very interesting that it would be a pit viper, considering there's a certain group of people who Jesus called a den of vipers. So it's a very specific kind of snake that just happened to show up with some very specific and peculiar markings on it. Again, watch my last video entitled, I think it was Strange Serpent Seed Synchronicity. And yes, I purposefully used that S alliteration because I'm cool like that. But I wanted to talk a little bit more about this Edomite Khazar theory. And there's a lot to it, so this isn't going to be comprehensive. But I just wanted to share a couple of things I've come across. I recommend that you do your own research. If you just start out by, Googling Edomite Jews or something like that, you're going to find a lot of articles. You're going to have to sift through it because some of it's going to be good information. Some of it's going to be a lot of, weird opinions. But I think if you spend the time looking into it, you will eventually accept the conclusion, like I did, that these people who call themselves Jews today and claim to be the descendants of Jacob are actually Edomites, the descendants of Esau. And I think this was just as true in the time of Jesus and Paul and the time of the writing of the New Testament, which of course was after the Babylonian captivity and all that. So there's a lot of history to it. I can't get into it all, but I'm going to at least introduce the topic, talk about it a little bit, and encourage you to do your own further research. And I will return to the topic again in the future because I think it's a very important topic for a lot of reasons. But anyone that's followed my channel for a while knows that I'm anything but a religious fundamentalist. I don't necessarily quote the Bible a lot and get into like Bible end time prophecies and all that kind of stuff too much. But to understand some of this stuff does require you to take a look at the Bible. It doesn't require you to believe that the Bible is literally true in every way or that it's the Word of God or to be a religious fundamentalist. But the Bible does contain a lot of texts that are relevant. So one is in Revelation 2:9, where it says, I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Judahites, Jews, and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. And of course, Jesus, Yeshua, speaking to the Jewish Pharisees, says, Ye are of your father the devil, and the lust of your father ye will do, in John 8:44. And this is the passage I was referring to just a little bit before in reference to that kind of strange thing that happened last night in my place. Matthew 23:33, Ye serpents, ye generation of vipers, how can ye escape the damnation of hell? I guess I'll repeat it briefly for anyone that hasn't seen that video. Basically, last night I was pulling up a lot of articles related to the Edomites and serpent seed and so on. And then I kind of passed out a little bit at my computer, woke up. I was going to walk outside. There was a snake on top of my doorway. And of course, I cut its head off with a sword, took it outside. When I looked at it this morning, I noticed that it had a very peculiar marking on it. Like I said, I think it's a pit viper, which is not a common snake in my area anyway, but it's got, where there's the brown splotches, almost every single one of them was shaped like the Star of David. So I just thought that was extremely weird, a den of vipers, right, with this particular symbol on it. Just as I was researching a lot of this stuff, preparing to do probably a series of videos on the topic. But I just found that to be a really strange coincidence. So, like I said, the Edomites are the descendants of Esau. So here's a passage in Malachi 1:3-4 that deals with Esau. It says, And I hated Esau, and laid his mountains and his heritage waste for the dragons of the wilderness. Whereas Edom saith, We are impoverished, But we will return and build the desolate places. Thus saith the Lord of hosts. They shall build, but I will throw down. And they shall call them the border of wickedness, the people against whom the Lord hath indignation forever. So does that sound like the chosen people to you? That sounds like the cursed people to me. Now, a lot of people have never heard of this Edomite, Khazar stuff, but it's kind of a secret hidden in plain sight. As admitted by even Jewish authorities, the Jews are primarily descended from an ancient tribe known as the Edomites. It's well documented that approximately 90 to 95%, the vast majority, of modern-day Jews are descended from a tribe known as the Khazars, who converted to Judaism in the 8th and 9th centuries AD, while living in what is now southern Russia and the Caspian Sea. What is less known is that these Khazars were in fact descended from the Edomites. And I'll get into something else that kind of confirms that in just a little bit. But first I just want to mention, okay, so 90 to 95% of modern day Jews are descended from the Khazars, right? So you might say, oh, well, the other, 5 or 10%, those are the real Jews then. Nope. I will actually argue that they are Edomites too, and are descended from the very same, group of Pharisees and the synagogue of Satan, the den of vipers that Jesus was talking about even in his time. But there's a lot to that. So basically, whether you're a Khazar or not, you are an Edomite. So here's something else I found that deals with that. And it has some weird words in it that I might pronounce wrong, so just bear with me. Hasdai ibn Shaprut, who was foreign minister to Aben al-Raham, Sultan of Cordova, in his letter to King Joseph of the Khazars, about 960 AD, speaks of the tradition according to which the Khazars once dwelt near the Seir Mountains. The Seir Mountains are none other than the original land of Esau, or Edom. Thus dwelt Esau in Mount Seir. Esau is Edom. Seir was a mountain range south of the Dead Sea and was also known as the land of Edom. The Seir Mountains were the home of the Edomites for nearly a millennium. The Edomites arrived in Edom, or Seir, at the end of the 14th and beginning of the 13th century BC, according to the Encyclopedia Judaica, Volume 6, page 372. Thus we have it from Jewish sources that the Khazars originally dwelt near the Seir Mountains, and so they're racially of Edomite stock. But how and when did Edomites get to Khazaria? There is evidence that in the 6th century BC, some of the Edomites fled their homeland of Seir and migrated north after the fall of Jerusalem in 586 BC. The Edomites began to press northward in Ezekiel 36:5. Now, some other Jewish sources that confirm this. One is the Jewish Encyclopedia, the 1925 edition, Volume 5, page 41, where it says, Edom is in modern Jewry. Here's another one from the Manifesto of the World Jewish Federation, January 1st, 1935, through its spokesperson, Gerald Soman. No one can deny that the Jews are a most unique and unusual people. That uniqueness exists because of their Edomite heritage. You cannot be English Jews. We are a race, and only as a race can we perpetuate. Our mentality is of Edomitish character, and differs from that of an Englishman. Enough subterfuges. Let us assert openly that we are international Jews. Now, it's interesting that in this passage they're contrasting themselves to English people, because my research has also confirmed to me that the English, or the Anglo-Saxons more broadly, are the true Israelites, descended from the 10 northern tribes of Israel, or Samaria, that were taken into Assyrian captivity, and then eventually became the Scythians, and then eventually became the Anglo-Saxons. So that's a very interesting contrast to bring up in that passage from the World Jewish Federation. Now, just like the 10 northern tribes, which retained the name Israel or Samaria after their capital city, were taken into Assyrian captivity, the southern tribes of Benjamin and Judah were taken into Babylonian captivity, where the Edomites were also taken into captivity, and apparently there was a lot of mixing, right? So their race was more or less destroyed through intermarriages and so on. A lot of the members of the tribe of Benjamin or Judah also apparently intermarried with, the Babylonians, as well as Edomites and Canaanites and so on. But also while they were taken into Babylonian captivity, the Babylonians kind of brought the Edomites into the land of Judea. So even in Jesus' time, which was after the return, and by the way, not all of the tribes of Benjamin and Judah actually returned. So in the time of Jesus and Paul, the land of Judea, which was called Idumea after the Edomites, that's how much the demographic shift had occurred at that time. It was probably even a majority Edomite, or kind of a mixed race mass at most. So everyone that was a so-called Judean, because they lived in the land of Judea or Idumea, was not necessarily a descendant of Jacob or a true Israelite. Probably most of them were Edomites. And that's why you get passages like the one I read earlier, where Jesus is getting into arguments with the Pharisees and saying, you're not descendants of Abraham. In other words, you're not true Israelites. You're not Hebrews. You are of your father the devil. You're of the serpent seed, or you're sons of Cain. He says your father was a murderer from the beginning. Well, who's that talking about? It's talking about Cain. So like I say, even in New Testament times, this was going on. This group of people calling themselves Jews who are not. Here's another little quote I found from the Jewish Encyclopedia, 1905, Volume 10, page 284. Some anthropologists are inclined to associate the racial origins of the Jews not with the Semites, whose language they adopted, but with the Armenians and Hittites of Mesopotamia, whose broad skulls and curved noses they appear to have inherited. So again, that's a Jewish source that confirms this. And it's interesting that if this is true, they're not even Semites. They're basically Hamites. So you can't call someone anti-Semitic. To be more accurate, you should call them anti-Hamitic. Because the Semitic people, according to the Bible, are the people that descended from Noah's son Shem. The Hamitic people are those who descended from Noah's cursed son Ham. And I've alluded to this in another video, I just didn't go into much depth. But one of Ham's descendants was Canaan, who was kind of the founder of the land of Canaan, or the Canaanites. So anyone who's a Canaanite, according to biblical genealogy, would be of the seed of Ham, who was cursed by Noah. And then, of course, apparently they intermarried with the Edomites, who are the seed of Esau. So it's kind of a mixed race people to some degree. All right, they're Canaanites, they're Edomites, they're descendants of Ham and Canaan, they're descendants of Esau, they're descendants of Cain. Far from being the chosen people, if anything, they're the cursed people. Just read what the book of Obadiah has to say about the Edomites, for example. And there's a lot of prophecies about the destruction of the Edomites in the end times that I will probably get into in the future, just because I find it really interesting. When we speak about the racial mixtures that brought about the Jews of today, we must highlight events surrounding the Babylonian captivity of Judah, which includes some from the tribes of Benjamin, Levi, and Simeon, taken by Nebuchadnezzar to Babylon. At the same time, Edom was put under Babylonian rule, causing some Edomites to be brought to Babylon, along with kindred races from Sidon and Tyre. Now, I should also mention there was a period where the kingdom of Judea was getting into kind of a lot of battles with the Edomites. And in the end, they conquered them and forced them to convert to Judaism. And from that time on, the Edomites basically became mixed with the kingdom of Judea, which is the southern kingdom, not the northern kingdom of Israel or Samaria, which later, according to my research and conclusions, became the Anglo-Saxon people. So this is a very ancient blood feud or conflict that's going on. I think to really understand what's going on in the world today, you have to look back at a lot of this old stuff. Whether you actually care about the Bible and prophecy and all that stuff or not, a lot of people do. And this is still shaping world events in very significant ways. So here's something else I found. Let us recognize that the original meaning of the word Jew did not signify a race of people or a religion. It signified all who lived in a geographic area called Judea, except for the Romans. In the days of Jesus, it's probably true that most of the residents of Jerusalem were Edomites. For with the exception of Judas, Jesus chose his disciples from Galilee. Jesus returned to the capital to fulfill the prophecy that his enemies, the Canaanite Jews, would crucify him. The word Jew or Judean had only a geographic import until after the death and resurrection of Jesus. The only people who held the name Jew were those who rejected Jesus and whose descendants will too. Intermarriage with Canaanites, Edomites, and Hittites was forbidden. It constitutes genocide, a word coined by self-styled Polish Jew Raphael Lemkin, meaning the extermination of an entire race. Scripture identifies the Canaanites, Hittites, and Hivites as among the descendants of Cain, who was the serpent seed. Esau married 2 serpent seed women and 1 Ishmaelite wife. Their children, the Edomites, intermarried with the Horites, Amalekites, and other serpent seed peoples. But even going back before that time, you could say that the true Jews would be the people that are born in the tribe of Judah. But even if you go back to the time of Joseph in the Bible, you'll see that Judah married foreign women. So every Judahite, even from the beginning, would be of mixed heritage, sort of. And, that's either a big deal to you or not. To me, in some ways, it's kind of not, but it's just a fact. Esau also married foreign women, and so all of his offspring, Edomites, would be mixed. So by the time you mix all of this together, my conclusion is basically those who call themselves Jews and are not, according to Revelation, are basically, Khazars or Edomites, Canaanites, and of the serpent seed of Cain or whatever. I encourage you to look into this more yourself because there is so much research and evidence for this view that I really can't do it justice in a single video. But like I said, if you just Google Jews are Edomites or whatever, you'll find a lot of articles and stuff to get you started. There's books written on this topic and so on. I've read a few of them. I'm still learning more about this. But like I said, you will have to sift through some kind of questionable material. And since I'm not like a religious fundamentalist or a Bible literalist, I take some of it with a grain of salt. But in terms of the big picture, I think it's right. The so-called Jews of today are Edomites. And the second part of that is that the so-called Anglo-Saxon people of today are basically the true Israelites, the true descendants of Jacob. So it's like this weird identity swap that's happened. And all these Judeo-Christians in the West, who are actually the true seed of Jacob and Israel, Jacob's name was changed to Israel. So to be an Israelite is to be of the seed of Jacob. And like I said, my research has led me to the conclusion that the Anglo-Saxon people are the seed of Jacob, or the true Israel. And they don't know it. And because of their Judeo-Christian religion, which has been completely hijacked and perverted by the Edomites, they think they have to support the satanic terrorist state of modern Israel, which is made up of those who call themselves Jews and are not. You should call it the kingdom of Edom, the state of Edom. That's what these Christian Zionists are actually supporting. So far from being God's chosen people, these are God's cursed people. And in the future, I will probably talk about some biblical prophecies relating to Jacob's time of trouble and the ultimate destruction of Edom. Because even though I take a lot of Bible prophecy kind of stuff with a grain of salt, it does seem to be pretty relevant to what's going on in the world today, so I can't exactly dismiss it. And like I said, this kind of strange thing that happened last night with the snake on above my door frame, I can't help but see that as a kind of omen or a kind of sign or synchronicity that I guess to me it kind of confirms in some way that I'm onto something here. It's almost like a sign from the universe or something. I don't know how else to take it because it's such a weird thing. But I will have a lot more to say about these topics. Being on YouTube, I think I'm probably a little bit limited about how far I can go and how much I can say. Because censorship is getting extremely bad. And I can tell I've been punished pretty badly by the algorithms and everything. I've got, 4,500 something subscribers now, yet a lot of my videos are only getting a couple hundred views. So I think for one thing, my subscribers are not getting notifications when I post a new video, so they're not watching them. But then also I'm not really getting new views because my videos are not turning up in search results. So I feel like my channel is kind of dying right now, and that's a little bit discouraging. Sometimes it kind of makes me feel like, well, why keep doing it then? But I don't plan on quitting, but as I've said before, I think it's extremely likely that my channel will end up being deleted at some point. So be sure to follow me on BitChute, where I have a little bit more freedom. Also, some of my more controversial videos I will probably publish exclusively on BitChute. If there's something I have to say and I'm like, this is definitely going to get banned on YouTube, or it's definitely going to get me a channel strike on YouTube, I probably won't even bother to post it here. I'll just post it on BitChute. Everything that's posted on my YouTube channel will be posted on BitChute, but there will be some things posted on BitChute in the future that will only be on BitChute. They will not be on YouTube. So for exclusive content, be sure to subscribe to me on BitChute. All of my links are going to be down below. And of course, if you'd like to make a donation, help support my channel, you can do that through PayPal or Patreon. I may look into some other ways of doing that in the future because, there's problems with PayPal and Patreon too, but that's what I've got right now. And another great way to support my channel is to download my music. I've got an album out. If you like the music, or even if you don't, but you just want to support my channel and work, you could buy the album. That's a great way to do it. So I will end there. I hope you found this thought-provoking, and I hope that I've inspired you to look deeper into this topic for yourself, because I've never really seen myself as being here to spoon-feed anybody. I'm here to give you some of the pieces of knowledge that I've gathered from different places and encourage you to look into it more deeply for yourself and, form your own conclusions. But again, I'm going to end there. I'll see you next time. Peace.